So I wrote an article, it was probably about 6 or so years ago now, about how I'd made an audio visualization kit, which was basically like a handbag, which turned into a little tray, and it had a projector and my laptop and a controller, and it basically was like a portable visualization kit that I took around my city, and I wrote an article about this. And another member that we have, because not all of the members are sitting here, got in touch, and he'd been doing similar things with JavaScript. We've basically been building audio visualizations with JavaScript. So we got together and started working together, and it was from that we just started inviting other people that we knew that were doing similar things, whether that be lighting, like controlling lighting rigs. Some people are doing that with JavaScript, or the audio visualization stuff that we were doing, and also just audio stuff, so musicians as well. And that way we could all work together, bounce ideas off each other, build things together, that kind of thing. That's how it all started. The internet. They're pretty cool.
I joined Live.js when Ruth and I met at a hackathon, which was a long time ago now, and the first performance that I did with Live.js was with one of the members, Tim, who I'd never met before. So I flew to his house in Frankfurt, and we had a hack weekend together to join our two softwares up. And then we presented it pretty much untested about a month later, and that was my first Live.js experience.
Very live.
Yeah. Very live.
Yeah, I joined later on. The JSConf EU had a call for artists, I think 2 years ago, or last year. And yeah, I applied for the call for artists, and I knew a couple of people from Live.js before. And so during the conference, I just teamed up with them and made some music during the breaks. And after that, I was just a member for some reason. I got the T-shirt, and that's how you get in.
You need the T-shirt.
Get a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Well, we all have our own projects, which are all open source, I think.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. They all use JavaScript.
Yeah.
Which itself is free to use. Yeah. I specifically work in the browser because it's so easy to get started. I think that's a big thing for anybody who wants to try it. Yeah. You can actually just go into the browser and start. And something like, for the visual side, and I'll let you guys take audio sides, something like p5.js is pretty good just to get started with writing some visuals and getting used to canvas and animations and things like that. I think that's good for beginners. Yeah. But all of our stuff can be found on GitHub. Under Live.js network, I believe.
Yeah. There's a couple of good libraries for doing web audio stuff, for building synthesizers and stuff like that. There's Tone.js, for example, which is pretty cool. And so there are a couple of projects out there that help you get like the hairy bits done. Most of my stuff is actually using the low-level APIs because it's going to be better performance-wise, but there are a couple of projects out there.
Yeah, there's an audio analysis library which is free to use called Mader. It allows you to kind of analyze audio in slightly different ways than you normally would in more commercial softwares, or commercial AV software at least. So that's quite fun to use, and it's free. In terms of, I guess, visual stuff, if you're trying to get into WebGL, which is, probably wouldn't do that first up, but you could try. Regl is a pretty nice little kind of library to get you started with shader programming at least. Then there's obviously, if you need more 3D stuff, there's 3JS, but if you're just trying to do shaders, Regl's pretty good.
For the most part, when we do get it working together, it actually works.
Yeah.
We have so many moving parts, and we've all probably worked on our own individual moving parts separately, because we live all around the globe. So me and Sam are located in different places in the UK. Jan, Tim, and Martin, a couple of our other members, they're in Germany, Matt's in New Zealand. So for us to actually be working in situ together, it's quite rare.
Yeah,
we tend to work separately and then bring it all together quite last minute and just improvise quite a lot. It's very improvising, which is fine. I think that works for the way that we work. So there's a number of things that can go wrong, and things do go wrong. We are running a lot of stuff in the browser a lot of the time, or some sort of version of, like Electron or something like that, and it's not a stable environment, put it that way. But I think that's probably the trickiest bit, really.
Yeah, I think one of the tricky bits is that we play a lot at conferences, and often conferences are not really prepared for the kind of equipment that we need, and so sometimes we run into problems that at like last minute we need to figure out how to get audio properly delivered and stuff like that, and so that's sometimes tricky. We played in a couple of places that were actually music venues, and that usually works quite well because then you have technicians on hand that know exactly what's going on, and that's quite cool.
Yeah. I'd say, following on from Ruth's comment about like the different versions of kind of browsers or environments that we're running in, specifically Tim and I, because we link our softwares up quite often, we usually find that there's been like a breaking change in like Chrome's like Canvas or WebGL like performance. So like one time that we're performing together, everything is totally like buttery smooth, lovely and stable. Then the next time it's like, oh, nothing's changed, we might have made some updates, but we haven't found anything bad like individually. But then we put it together and it's like, oh, that doesn't work now. Why does this not work? Oh no, we're on tomorrow. It's 2 a.m. Yeah, so that happens actually quite a lot. And then there's like, the trawling the bug reports from Chrome, just trying to, see if anyone else has had this like one issue that we're having, and it's usually no. So, it's like, find another bug report, see if there's a workaround. That happens too often. I can't tell you how many times, but yeah, it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, one of the more fun stories was when we built the software that I was using today to generate the audio. We were doing that at JSConf EU this year, and we were sitting backstage somewhere because we had the whole week to prepare for it, and we couldn't get it to work like stable. It was stuttering all the time, and we had one of the Google engineers who does the developer outreach sitting with us in the room. And we were just asking him, like, do you have any tricks or tips you could give us? And he was poking around a little bit in the process manager in Chrome, and then gave us this sudo renice command to change the process priority of the browser process to get it working stable. And it's been stable ever since, but it's like weird. You really have to go into like on Windows, you have to go into the task manager and change the process priority by hand. So yeah,
it's kind of cool though, because it does mean that we're kind of pushing these technologies to their bitter edge, basically, which is, it's very fun, It's like you do come across these things and it's like, oh, it's not working. But then, you double check yourself, because like you're always, you're always second guessing yourself. It's like, is it me or is it the implementation in the browser? Yeah. And then it turns out that, oh, actually it isn't me, it really is the implementation. And you're like, oh, well, that just means either my computer's not powerful enough, or I've got to file a bug report now.
Yeah, I find that so much.
It's incredible.
I'll be stuck on something for ages, and I'll be like, oh, why does this stop working, or why isn't this working? And then you realize that it's just not as spec. And you found a bug, and you're like, oh my goodness me, you just spent like half a day just thinking that you've missed a semicolon. And it's just not you. Because that's your instant reaction when something doesn't work. It's like, oh, what's wrong with the code? And you're there, and you're just looking at it, and you're like, I don't, oh my goodness. And then you realize it's not you at all. But
the cool part about it is really that we, because we have been playing a lot at conferences, we now know a lot of people at the browser vendors, so we can actually directly talk to people and say, hey, this doesn't seem to be working, what's going on there? And then they can go back to their teams and ask around. So that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, and they appreciate that as well. Yeah.
Not so much if you add them on Twitter, it's like, hey, fix your stuff. I get like, what libraries to use quite often. I think we all do.
Yeah, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Which, we do talk about in our talk, so we don't necessarily get a huge amount of questions, but I think personally, we probably get those sort of, what libraries, what technologies, how do I do this, how do I get started, that kind of, that's the sort of questions.
I think in terms of performances as well, like developers at conferences or wherever we play, it's usually, I think people kind of get a little bit more, they get a little bit more interest in what we're doing when it's like an actual performance rather than an introduction or part of the conference, because when you're at a conference and it's an introduction, or if you're on the big stage, it's like you're a little bit inaccessible at that point. You can't just come up and ask questions because you're the audience and then there's the performers. But for example, at the JSConf that we've done for a few years, and also in Dublin as well at 404.
Oh yeah, that was good.
People just come up and they ask questions, and we encourage that too. We actually quite like it. Maybe not exactly when we're performing, but there's usually enough of us to kind of, take questions while the others are performing.
And I think the combination of having a performance that you can actually watch and listen to, and then afterwards a talk that explains how the sausage is made is like a really good combination. People are really into that, like figuring out what's actually going on and seeing that it's actually web technologies that we're using, and so it's accessible to them in a way. That's, I think, is a good combination that works very well.
It's mostly electronic stuff, yeah.
Full range of it from different musicians.
It depends who's playing, really.
It depends who's playing and how they're feeling.
There's a lot of ambient jams at the bigger conferences.
Matt especially, yeah. I never tell what Matt's going to do.
And then all of a
I'm
sudden,
like, oh, it's Matt, it's going to be ambient. And then he's playing something upbeat, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Ambient jams to techno beats is usually the case.
Ambient jams to techno beats, I like that.
So today was a little bit of a mixed bag, because I tried to also, because it's the whole thing was about the moon landing, and so we tried to get some influences, at least from the music from the time, into that. So I had a couple of ideas how to bring, for example, psychedelic rock into it a little bit, at least. So there was this Indian drone thing at the beginning, and drums that were a little bit more analog than I would normally play. Yeah.
I find this one a difficult one because I'm not sure whether it is the best solution. What I found is it's the most accessible for me from a personal point of view, because I was building with web technologies anyway. When I started doing just audio viz in a browser, it's just more of an experiment, because we were getting these APIs that allowed me to do it. And it didn't mean that I needed a big, cumbersome OS level piece of software on my little computer. I could actually tailor it to how I wanted it, which I think you could do with any language. Like if you've got the right access to the right things that you need, sounds, analysis, visuals, whatever, you could probably do it with other languages as well. It's just that I personally have had much more of a freer coding journey using something that I already know or am already familiar with. I have considered if it could be anything else, but even just learning shaders this year is learning GLSL, which is not actually JavaScript. So it does, you do branch off anyway. I know that Matt did a little bit of Rust to use WebAssembly.
I was trying to fix a bug recently with Canvas's get image data. Like there was a big performance slowdown. The Chrome team are saying there isn't, but there is. Can prove it. But so I kind of needed to kind of get into JavaScript. So JavaScript sometimes isn't the best way to go, but again, it's accessible, and I feel like it's a fun thing as well to do, because we are kind of just trying to see where we can push JavaScript and what we can get out of it. But when you do find these kind of anomalies, I turned to Rust recently because you can call the same browser APIs from Rust, but it's slightly more performant in some cases. So I was actually trying to kind of refresh the screen at the correct rate while using something called get image data on Canvas, and Rust was able to do it, but JavaScript wasn't able to do it, even though it's technically calling the same API. So you do end up learning different languages and kind of exploring different routes.
Yeah, I think for me there's two reasons. One is very broad in general, which is just the accessibility part, which is you can give something to. You can push something to GitHub and people can check it out and can use it without installing any kind of extra compilers or what have you. They can just use it, or you can publish it as a website and have a demo. So that's one thing that I find really appealing. And the other thing is that for the audio stuff, for some reason we have this amazing web audio API, which works exactly at the kind of right level of abstraction that works for me personally very well. So you have these nodes that you can connect to each other, almost like you have a modular synthesizer. And I knew the terms, I knew the kind of the inner workings of these things, but I'm not really great at building like complex DSP algorithms and stuff like that. But I'm really good at plugging all these things together, and that's exactly how the web audio API works, and that's why it works. I'm pretty sure things like that are available in other languages and environments, but it was just a perfect match for what I'm trying to do.